My career started in college. I'm back in college again at the University of Houston. I have several other businesses and practices, one of which is a marketing consulting practice where I have several clients on the side, and public speaking. So if you notice my colleague here videotaping, that's just so later when I get sued, that I can become a better public speaker and use less disfluencies. I was at the University of Delaware. I was 19 years old, end of my freshman year, and I tried out to be their then mascot, which was just known as the Blue Hen. And it was a crappy costume done locally, and I just serendipitously walked into this at the perfect time because the university president decided we need to rebrand this entire university. The College of Business has their logo of what University of Delaware is. The College of Arts and Science has this logo. So we wanted to create a new mascot, a professionally done one by a company out of Atlanta. A lot of people outside of our business get stunned when they find out that mascot costumes that are custom quality are $8,500 to $12,500. That didn't scare him, but the cool part was as a 19-year-old, I got to see a rebrand process happen at a university with a lot of resistance. Each department and each college was very proud of their own logo and their own stake in who they were independently. And I got to see how they were compelled from the top to know we need to unify this vision and communicate more clearly to the world. So most of what I did that first year as UD, which was a play on UD, University of Delaware, Y-O-U-D-E-E was the name of the character, was tons of photo shoots where I'd be at the volleyball team, doing volleyball poses, so that everybody had, the field hockey team, the science department, and the labs. Everybody had their own version of it. It was a really good opportunity for me to see what marketing looked like. I tell people I went into school to be an accountant. I came out wearing fur. I left Delaware my senior year when I got the offer from the Houston Rockets to come be their new mascot about 3 months after their second championship, just in time to see how great it was, and I left in 2016 to never see it again. So if anybody is counting, I am the jinx here in Houston for the Rockets. They're probably going to win this year. So that's how I kind of got into it. I do not think of myself first as a performer and entertainer, which I think shocks a lot of people. I think of myself first, not as a marketer either, but as a brand builder. I came in and created this character. I got to create every character that I ever portrayed, one for the WNBA, 2 for arena football, my own personal one that I still use occasionally at school shows in Houston, and minor league baseball around the country. And really that was not just, hey, let's think of a cool concept, design it, put it on paper, but it was the belief in building it and having a vision and a commitment to it when there was no income. My first year, and I tell you this not to boast, but my belief in third-party word-of-mouth marketing and creating an amazing experience for your customers so that they do your marketing for you. You turn your customer base into your sales force, and they're the most credible people in the world because they have no dog in your race. They're not in Senate, they're not an advertiser, they're not paid to say good things about you, and that's how we built Clutch. So my first year, I was paid $20,000 a year to be their mascot in 1995 and got 50% of my appearances. We only did $5,000 in appearances because a character named Turbo was hugely popular, having just gone through 2 championships, and he was a completely different dynamic character. Their idea of a mascot was somebody that ran and tumbled and jumped and rappelled from the ceilings and dunked and did amazing daredevil stunts. And the reaction I was met with was, hey, Rocket's rat, get out of my way, where's Turbo? There was more colorful language used than that, I assure you. So we only did $5,000 in appearances that first year. The last 10 years of my career, I averaged between $250,000 and $300,000 a year. That was off of a base salary of around $150,000, but everything else was based on third-party revenue. We started charging $150 my first year for corporate events and $0 for community events. That fee ended up to be $1,000 across the board. We were not dynamic with our pricing because we had limited supply, the supply being my time. We could never use backups or branch off into other entertainers. And we did that not with a lot of outbound marketing or sales efforts. We only did 1 mailing per year to all the schools in the Houston area at the beginning of August, right when principals and teachers are getting back. but everything else was brand building oriented. It was create the best, funniest, most engaging, inspirational, home court advantage driven stuff at the games as possible, and then treat every event like it was a show. The games were shows. I'm not a sports fan. Never was. I don't spend any of my time in my social life watching them. I find them boring. I find them watching other people have fun. I'm into entertaining people, making them laugh, and inspiring them. So I have always thought about our games as a show and not a game. You're in your seat 2 hours and 45 minutes for a Rockets game, and most of our sporting events, football's longer, but the ball's only in play in the NBA for 48 minutes. It was our job to bridge that gap, to create value, and to drive sales through the content and being fully entertained in that. So, one of the favorite ways I like to phrase it is, would you rather knock on 100 doors trying to convince people, 100 people that what you have is what they want, or have 100 people knocking on your door asking for what you have? The clearest example of that in my career is our school show business. That was all word of mouth marketing, and we just created an hour-long show, and early on we would get calls all the time. We heard that this is really good and it delivers a lot of entertainment, the kids are engaged, but how do you do it with a character that doesn't talk in front of kindergarten through 5th graders for an hour long? Like, you're not going to keep their attention. And how do you deliver any redeeming message? Because this sounds like the most expensive recess that we've ever purchased. And we did. The answer is, we focused on it. We really honed in on how to keep the kids' attention, but slip the messaging in of their education. We coined the phrase edutainment back then when it wasn't being thrown around a lot. And then it was principals talking to principals, not us outbound calls, but really in that role, we weren't salespeople, we were order takers. We were brand builders, and I said we had the same assistant for 17 years. So we were order takers because we were brand builders first. So, how do we make interesting content? This is a lot going to come from the top, and there's nuance in it. First of all, you have to have the support from above. If you create content that is safe and that is cute, that is irrelevant to our average fan. In the NBA, our demographics was 35 to 55-year-old males dominated that purchasing decision. They don't laugh at cute, they're not driven by it. Yeah, it might be nice for their kids, but it bores them. So you have to be edgy, you have to push the envelope, use whatever cliche you'd like. And there's two main common denominators, sex and violence. Now those are salacious words, and I do believe there is a continuum here of what is acceptable. I have just gone through that transition and anticipated it myself at the University of Houston. Having left the NBA, going into academia, you can imagine, using common sense, it's going to be a little bit more politically correct and the need to be safer. However, these concepts work, and what I would share with you is the riskiest thing that you can do for yourself, personally, in your own careers, or your organizations, is consistently make safe decisions in the short run. If you do that, you will end up becoming irrelevant to the masses. You will become uninteresting, and they will not want to spend their money to you. Does that mean that you have to make the risky decision every time? No, and sometimes you got to sit down on one even when you think it's inbounds. So, I said sex and violence. Here's what I mean by that, and I do believe there's a craft here, and it requires nuance and an artist in the role that I had, but also in whatever we're doing, to grab people's attention so it is sticky marketing that actually converts people into buying more or coming back. I'll give you an example of what I mean by sex. One of my favorite bits that I ever did, and I used to incorporate my children. I have 2 sets of twins because God blessed me. My first set of twins got incorporated in the show business early on. And we would do this one skit where Santa Clutch would sit at mid-court, and there'd be 3 kids lined up to tell him what they want for Christmas, sit on his lap, get a picture, then he'd reach into the bag and give it to him like the traditional mall scene. Well, the first little boy sits on his lap, and Clutch goes, okay, they take the picture. He reaches in the bag and gives him a toy Tonka truck. The second little girl sits on Clutch's lap, they take the picture. He reaches into the bag and he gives her a big, huge Barbie doll. The third boy sits on Clutch's lap, a little bit older, whispers into his ear, and Clutch reacts like, "What?" All right. Clutch gets up, goes into this big bag there, opens it up, and out pops a power dancer. And everybody roars with laughter. And Clutch walks the power dancer over. That's the name of our dance team members. And the little boy shakes his head no. And the little boy, just to give you an idea of the conservativeness of his parents, was our CEO who went to Harvard undergrad and Harvard Law. And as people go, he's as conservative as they come. But the little boy goes, "No, Clutch, 2. Clutch shrugs, goes back to the bag, and this bag's been motionless the whole time, brought out on a dolly, and out pops a second one. Huge round of laughter. Didn't get one letter, not one call. Nobody got offended. Really, as adults here in this room, what was the joke about? It was about sex. And it was about a kind of weird sex by normal standards with 2. He wanted 2 girls. So when I say sex, no, you can't be crude or crass, but you gotta figure out how to do that entertainment in front of a family audience that hits people up here that are adults on one level and kids down here on another. Pixar Entertainment, DreamWorks, all these movies that come out now that parents enjoy watching, animated features just as much as the kids, are geniuses at it. Now, if I put that skit my first year down on paper and said, "Here's what I want to do," and storyboarded it out, our CEO, George Pastolos, probably would have said, "You're crazy, get out of here." So these aren't things that are, so easy to write out. It takes trust and nuance, and that's what makes good entertainment work. Violence, what do I mean by that? No, you can't just sit there and beat somebody to death with a bat, or seemingly so, that's wearing the other team's jersey. However, back to my twin boys. It was the night that Batman versus Superman came out in the theaters. Billed huge. This is the first time these two are squaring off. We had a game that same night, and I came up with this idea a couple weeks in advance, and it just hit me. So my boys have been into martial arts ever since they were 3.5. They took jiu-jitsu, they took karate, and then they took 4.5 years of taekwondo. They are now black belt. But back when they were 10, when they were 7, they looked like they were 4, because their mother, who was the dance director at the Rockets, as well as the MC, was very short. So these 7-year-olds really look like they're 4 at mid-court, and they have all of their gear on. Their sparring gear, their chest protectors, their gloves, their feet protectors, their helmets. And on top of that, one's wearing a Superman outfit, the other wearing a Batman outfit. And Clutch came out as a referee, and he said, "We're going to settle this dispute for once and for all with the big movie coming out. You're going to ding, 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 here it goes in a 60-second grudge match." And what you think is these 2 little, seemingly 4-year-olds are just going to poke around and, okay, this is a cute sketch. We're just really going to kind of cheer for who we like better, Superman or Batman as characters. Well, they spar twice a week. They've been taking Taekwondo at that point 4 years, and they're twins, so they're evenly matched and they're each other's sparring partners. And they beat the tar out of each other on a regular basis, but with all the protective gear, and they go at it. And the second I clap my hands and they come in, they start roundhouse kicking, and the place blows up. It goes bonkers. Of 1,500 games that I did in my career, this was one that was like, we just turned this somewhat reserved NBA audience into a WWE audience. We didn't get one complaint at the office. Now, they posted it on Fox 26. It got 3.5 million hits in like a day. Was there a few comments there? Yeah. And then there was 120 replies to each comment that was negative about, this is self-defense, this is taught in every strip mall around the city, this is about discipline, this is not promoting violence. So that's what I mean. Find the nuance, and don't just always play it safe, because your fans are going to be bored by that. Here's something that we did this year that I'm starting to see popping up, and not everything has to be salacious, but I believe in interaction. Obviously, we know what engagement economy means. I saw the Minnesota Vikings do this back in November, researched it this past November. This is all brand new. Basically, they used the slogan, "Find out what happens when me becomes we," and for one of their games, they had 70,000 of these given out free in the free programs, and it is basically a piece of red sticky film that goes over the back flashlight of your phone. There's other technology out now that can change the front face of your phone based on music and things like that, but you gotta get the people to download the app, and then beyond that, nothing is more bright than the flashlight on the back of your phone. So I contacted the Vikings, and they said 3M did this as a one-off. They're based in Minneapolis, and they're one of our 7-figure sponsors. They did this as a special thing just to activate their sponsorship. They have refused 2 or 3 of the other calls we sent their way. They're not in the business of doing these little short runs of 70,000, or I was looking for 7,000. So we re-engineered it ourselves. We did it at a game to test it in February. Our athletic director loved it so much that he said, do the rest of the games the rest of the season. We used it for College Game Day when it came to Houston for the first time ever. And people did it and got into it. Now, I wanted to see 7,000 fans at Fertitta Center doing it, and I was disappointed to only see 3,000-ish doing it, but our athletic director came up to me with a huge smile and, go spend the money on this immediately. It was something that engaged our fans. They got to do, our colors are red, they put it over it. When the lights go out, everybody was very clearly instructed. One of the biggest challenges in my career going from the NBA to college is I thought I was going to be using my creative side more and more. It's not. I would say I went from a marketing side to a marketing operations side, using a bunch of unpaid college interns. Really, you have to go back to basics on how to execute stuff. So I've spent a lot of time teaching people how to roll t-shirts and tape them properly and things that I was like, well, that's not what I'm going to be focused on. But this was one of the cool envelope pushing ideas. I got a buddy that's a producer at the Globetrotters, sent it over to him, they're doing it. Sent it out to some other people. The Indians just did it last week. But it's that kind of sticky marketing that creates that water cooler talk the next day, whether your team wins or loses. The best definition of our job as sports marketers and game ops people in the business that I've ever heard is if you stand outside your arena or your stadium after the game and you look at the faces of the people exiting and you can't tell whether the home team won or lost, we did our job. And these are one of the things, I say that having just gone to the Sweet 16 for the first time in a long time, but football, this is one of those things that got talked about, and there was a lot of creative social buzz. This was one of my biggest things as clutch as far as views. It was another quote-unquote violent bit. And it got 103 million views. It had, 37,000 comments in every language, half of which didn't even look like languages to me, so I know there was languages from across the world, and 431,000 likes. I think one of the reasons is because comedy, and especially silent comedy, crosses borders and languages and cultural barriers. The point that I want to point out here, now the bit was simple. It's a musical chairs bit. He's in a devil costume. We rehearse it in the back. The fans don't know that it's planned, rehearsed action. A lot of performers and people in the business don't understand when they see some of these other ideas happen. That's all worked out, rehearsed, and planned to make it look real, but it's not real. Nobody's throwing cakes in opposing team fans' faces just because they're wearing that. It's a plan. But you want to make it look real. This one, Clutch plays the bully, and every time the music stops, he kicks a kid, he picks a kid, he pushes a kid, he trips a kid. It gets down to him and a 7-year-old girl. When the music stops, she kicks him in the groin between the legs, and he goes down. Actually, this one could be under sex or violence if you want to be technical. And she wins, the place goes nuts because the villain got his just desserts in the end. Why did it get 103 million views? It wasn't because of the content. I did that skit every single year for 21 years. It was not new, and this was maybe the 15th year I did it. What I found is if you post some of your most quality content on holiday weekends, it will go viral if it's good, sticky content. It's when people have unstructured time, they're with their families. And I don't know how it is for you, but when I'm around my family for too long, I start to get a little batty, and then I want to go play on my phone, look at stuff, and share stuff. They're not at work, they're not on vacation, they are hanging out. So the other 2 times that I had bits that went near this viral was a Good Friday for an Easter weekend and 2 days after Christmas on the 27th. And all three of those big, and I have them framed or whatever, like, I can't believe we got 103 million views worldwide. All three of those things happened on holiday weekend. So I'd encourage you, whatever you're trying to get out, if it's interesting, not just sales messages and things like that, but interesting, entertaining, funny content, post it then and be strategic. So I'll let you watch this real quick and talk about.
Today's a special day. It's the second consecutive year that I've run the Houston Half Marathon in full costume as Clutch for organ donation awareness. My father's life was saved by an organ donor on February 15th, 2012 that saved his life. He was suffering from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is a non-lifestyle related lung disease, a hardening of the lungs. And it was compounded by a case of pneumonia, and I had rushed him to the hospital on February 2nd, 2012. The doctors basically said he has about 3 months to live if he doesn't get a transplant. And a week later, he was on the transplant list, and a week later after that, he got the transplant that saved his life. So that's what today's about. Today's about creating the biggest spectacle in a fun, silly, goofy way with a 6'8", 92-inch waist teddy bear that's going to run 13.1 miles, and he's going to stand out in the crowd, and people are going to turn their heads and go, what? This is ridiculous. This is amazing. This is silly. And then when they do turn their heads, they're going to see the band across my forehead that has donatelifetexas.org on it, and they're going to see the message on my t-shirt, the 6XL that it is, along with the rest of my team that's running with me, that says Team Clutch. I run for organ donation awareness, donatelifetexas.org. Become an organ donor today. Today is one piece of my quest to try to convince as many people in our country to say yes to organ donation as possible. There's 120,000 people on the transplant waiting list. 18 people die every single day in our country that otherwise would have been saved if there was enough available organs and people registered to be organ donors. It's something that everybody can participate in. It's something that everybody might benefit at one point in their life. And it only takes about 60 seconds to go online and sign up. Most of people, it's just an awareness issue, and it's about taking the time to do it. Every major world religion supports organ donation, and we're going to make a difference.
So I show you that. One, I hope you're an organ donor. If you're not, please be inspired to go on America.net and register to be one. It's something we can all participate in, something we can all benefit from. You never know what's going to happen. But two, there has to be a degree of shock, I believe, in our marketing that gets people's attention, that creates them talking through the grapevine, at the water cooler, whatever cliche you want to use for it, so that it drives our brand, builds our brand, advertises for us, and then sells for us. Is it hard to measure? Yes, it's hard to measure. It's more faith-based, not religion faith, but I know that it matters because it does. To what degree? I can't really pinpoint a number for you. What I will tell you is that metrics are important to me after the fact. In general, the way my mind works and I see the world is metrics are about where we've been, but not where we're going necessarily. That is more of an art form and anticipating, and has to do with imagination, curiosity, creativity. What did that do specifically? When Tanner and I were talking, we talked about Net Promoter Score. I'm sure you're familiar with that, 8s through 10s, about people that are going to recommend your product, and renewals specifically. That came through years of talking. We're not going to leverage our mascot. That's marketing the marketing. We're not going to leverage our mascot to sell tickets. But we're going to talk to people on a sales basis. Our salespeople are going to say, yeah, but look at all the other value that we give you. They're going to use lines like, when you're in your seats, you're entertained for 2 hours and 45 minutes, not just for 48 minutes. We throw dancers at you, halftime acts from around the country, quality content with our mascot, our video board, all that stuff. So I look at renewals, specifically when it comes to sports marketing. That piece that I just showed you there on organ donation, I serve on the board at Life Gift now since 2013, joining their board. The CEO called me at Life Gift the day after we did that and said, this is unbelievable. We're seeing a 43% spike in our January web traffic. And the only thing we can attribute it to, because it's been very consistent over the years, some more in some months, but 43% in our traffic, because of that run, all the interviews and media surrounding it, and the night before was the best moment that I had in my career, because we had a home game, and I orchestrated it so that the young man who passed away, that was 22's parents, were in from Dallas-Fort Worth to be my guest at the game. What they didn't know is I had a suite for them. The Rockets provided me a suite. Beyond that, what they didn't know is in that suite was the heart recipient, the pancreas recipient, the kidney recipient, and my father, who was the double lung recipient. So they first had this moment where they got to rejoice and lots of tears. And then at the second time out of the game, I made my way up to that suite, and nobody knew this, including the people that received the organs that were there. They didn't know this. Only myself, our president, the PA announcer, and our game director knew that during the second time out, a tight shot, I got them all lined up side by side, and I said, you just got to trust me on this. Camera hit Rob and Janice Heidemann and said, Rockets fans, Rob and Janice Heidemann are joining us tonight. They tragically lost their son, Ian, 3 years ago in a car accident on Valentine's Day 2012. But due to Ian's selfless, forward-thinking decision to make himself an organ donor, he saved 5 lives. The whole place blew up. Round of applause. Announcer waited for the applause to die down, started to pan out. Joining Rob and Janice tonight are Reggie King, who received Ian's heart. Also Rachel Brownhill, who received Ian's kidney and pancreas. And Clutch's father, Paul Bodwin, who received Ian's lungs. The whole place gave a standing ovation. There wasn't a dry eye in the building. Between that, running the Houston Marathon, half marathon in front of a 250,000 people, live audience, televised live, we drove 43% web traffic. It was sticky marketing. It wasn't about making them laugh, but it was about tugging at their heartstrings. So I would challenge you to think about